Okay, so today we're going to tackle something pretty crucial. America's place in the world of like tech innovation. It's a big one.
Yeah.
We've got this podcast script. It's called America's Tech Surge, the Battle for Innovation. And I think our mission here is to really unpack this whole idea of a tech battle and see what it actually means for, well, all of us, really.
Yeah, right off the bat, what's really interesting is how the whole idea of tech innovation, what it means, it's changed. We're
Yeah.
not just talking about the next cool gadget anymore.
Right.
This script, it makes this point that being a leader in technology, it's like totally tied to national security now. Think about it, protecting data, making
Mm.
sure your inventions are secure, keeping your economy strong. It all depends on being on top in tech.
Yeah, for sure. It's a whole different ball game than just, inventing things for the sake of it. And I mean, when you look back, it's easy to just assume America's always been this tech superpower.
Right.
I mean, think about it. Silicon Valley, the whole AI scene, biotech, even space exploration, the US has been a huge player.
Absolutely. For a long time, the U.S. was like the leader in tech, no question. But what's interesting is this script shows how things are shifting. You've got China, the European Union, even some countries that are developing really fast. They're all stepping up and challenging the U.S. And it's not just about catching up anymore. It's about becoming the new centers for innovation.
Okay, so let's get into this whole global tech arms race thing that the script talks about. Like, the rivalry between the US and China. This is serious business, right? I mean, we've seen trade wars, tariffs, these intense negotiations, all focused on these crucial technologies like 5G, artificial intelligence, semiconductors.
Yeah, and you can't ignore these huge Chinese tech companies. I mean, companies like Huawei, Tencent, Alibaba, they're not just big in China, they're global players. They're innovating so fast, it's definitely made the U.S. step back and rethink its tech strategy.
And the US government hasn't just been sitting around, right? The script talks about them trying to pump up American tech. More funding, new policies, partnerships between the government and businesses.
And that's where the THIPS and Science Act comes in. It's from 2022. And this act, it's really interesting. It directly links making semiconductors here in the U.S. to national security. Remember the pandemic?
Yeah.
It showed just how fragile those global supply chains are, especially for crucial stuff like semiconductors. The big takeaway, this act shows a shift, a move toward making sure we can make our own tech here in the U.S. to keep us safe and secure, learning from what happened before.
Right. Like, I remember those shortages. New cars, game consoles, everything was delayed. So the CHPS Act, it was basically about getting that manufacturing back in America, right?
Exactly. Billions of dollars to get American companies to make semiconductors right here. But it went beyond that, too. The act also put money into research, the cutting-edge stuff, AI, quantum computing, new ways to communicate. It's all connected, the goal.
Mm-hmm.
Keep America ahead of the game while China's also making big strides in technology.
Okay, so let's talk about one of those cutting edge areas, artificial intelligence. This script says AI is at the heart of America's tech surge. I mean, and you see it everywhere, right? Healthcare, finance, entertainment, manufacturing, AI is changing everything.
And America has this history with AI, The script points out how our universities, the whole venture capital scene, and these big tech companies, Google, Microsoft, Tesla, they've been key to all these breakthroughs we're seeing. You've got self-driving cars, those super helpful virtual assistants, things like ChatGPT.
But as we said, China isn't just watching from the sidelines. They're really pushing hard in AI too. The script talks about how the Chinese government has made AI a top priority and they're pouring tons of resources into it.
Yeah, exactly. And those big Chinese tech companies, Baidu, Tencent, Alibaba, they're all investing heavily in AI. And what's interesting here is the role of the government. I mean, they can really direct all this funding and give these companies huge support, which creates a whole different level of competition. So while both countries are moving fast, are they really approaching, the core research, the breakthroughs, the same way?
So how's the US trying to stay ahead in AI? The script mentions efforts in the government and the military.
Yeah, so they're focusing on making AI development a priority everywhere. There's this proposed AI Initiative Act from back in 2021. It was all about increasing investment in AI research, educating people, building the right infrastructure. But the script also stresses these partnerships, between the public and private sectors.
That makes sense. You see the Department of Defense working with companies like Palantir and Lockheed Martin to make AI for national security. It sounds like the military is a big early adopter of this AI stuff.
Absolutely. I mean, from that sophisticated predictive analytics stuff to those, unmanned aerial vehicles, they're finding all sorts of ways to use AI.
Now let's talk about venture capital, the money that helps these tech companies grow. The script makes it clear that along with the government, venture capital is super important for creating those future tech giants. And Silicon Valley, it's still the big name in this kind of investment, right?
What's cool about venture capital is how it works. They find these startups that could really change things, and they give them the money and the guidance to grow into these big, powerful companies. I mean, think about it. Amazon, Google, Facebook, they all started with venture capital.
And what are the hot areas for investment in the US right now? What are venture capitalists interested in?
The script points to blockchain technology, AI itself, and of course, green energy. These are the sectors that are supposed to drive the U.S. economy forward. But, we have to remember, the U.S. isn't alone in the venture capital game.
Right. The script talks about competition from places like China, Israel, and India.
Exactly. The U.S. has to keep its venture capital scene open to fresh ideas, competitive, and it has to adapt to what these new tech entrepreneurs need, otherwise they'll go elsewhere. It's like a global market for big ideas and finding the money to make those ideas happen.
So let's jump into another area, one that's like really mind-blowing, quantum computing. The script calls it a game changer with the potential to solve problems that our best computers can't even touch right now.
I mean, imagine being able to create entirely new types of medicines or, crack codes that are unbreakable today. That's the kind of revolutionary potential we're talking about.
And the script says there's a huge race to make quantum computing a reality, with big U.S. companies like IBM, Google, and Intel putting serious money into it.
Yeah, but we can't forget about China. The script emphasizes how committed they are to quantum research. And remember that breakthrough Chinese scientists made back in 2021?
Yeah.
It shows how high the stakes are. I mean, this isn't just about having faster computers. It could change the balance of power in economics and even the military.
It goes way beyond just, speed, right? The script talks about being able to break encryption, which has huge security implications, and even simulating molecules, which could lead to, huge discoveries in materials and medicine.
Absolutely. And as the U.S. and China try to get ahead in this incredible field, there's this big question. How do we make sure this powerful technology is used responsibly and fairly? It's a global issue that needs careful thought.
And the script brings up another interesting dimension to this whole tech race. It calls it the global tech war, a battle of values. It's not just about the technology itself, it's also about what each country believes in.
Yeah, the script contrasts American values like freedom of information, democracy, privacy, with how Chinese tech companies often work closely with their government, where control and data surveillance can be very different.
And the script uses the rollout of 5G as a real-world example. The U.S. has been telling its allies to think twice about using Chinese-made 5G because of concerns about, spying and national security.
Right. And at the same time, China's been expanding its influence in developing countries, offering to build infrastructure and giving loans. But that also means those countries might end up using Chinese tech and maybe even adopting some of their values. And then there are these global organizations like the UN and the WTO, where the US and China are both trying to shape the rules for technology around the world.
So in the end, the script suggests that America's success in tech isn't just about having the coolest gadgets, it's also about the values it stands for and its role in the world.
It's not enough to just be the best, technologically speaking. The U.S. also has to show that it believes in its values and builds strong relationships with other countries, especially with all this competition going on.
So after this deep dive into America's tech surge, what we see is this huge fight for leadership in tech, happening in AI, quantum computing, making semiconductors, even attracting venture capital. And all of this is going on against the backdrop of, intense global competition and these fundamental differences in values between countries.
And it's not like we can predict the future. I mean, yeah, the U.S. is a leader now in a lot of these areas, but this script makes it clear that this tech battle is far from over. Technology changes so fast, and other countries are getting more ambitious, so who knows what the tech world will look like in a few years.
And this brings up this crucial question for America, How do they stay ahead in innovation, but also deal with the ethical stuff, the security risks, and the impact these powerful technologies will have on society?
So this brings up a question for you, the listener. Think about how technology is changing so fast and how different countries have different values. How will this affect our world? And what role will you play in all this? It's definitely something to think about.